everything he just said is completely false. Right? I said something stupid
Well,
that had nothing.
The record is clear.
The candidates for a South Florida congressional seat really go at it. You will hear Carlos Curbelo and Joe Garcia debate.
I think it's pretty clear Donald Trump was not my first choice or even my 10th choice to be the nominee of the Republican Party.
Marco Rubio doesn't like and doesn't respect Donald Trump, but says he will still vote for him. We'll have an update on the Senate race.
I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Donald Trump defies tradition by refusing to say if he will accept the election results. We'll take it to the roundtable. Good morning, welcome. Glad you could join us. Glenna is off this morning. Our focus today is the most hotly contested congressional race on the ballot in South Florida, and the candidates are with us to debate. We're talking about the race for Congress in the 26th congressional district that is basically Westchester to Key West, a big chunk of South Florida, about 800,000 people, and it includes Everglades National Park. Representative Carlos Curbelo currently represents this district. He is a Republican, finishing his first term in office and now running for another one. Joe Garcia represented this district in Congress from 2012 to 2014, running now to take that seat back. He is a Democrat. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have you come in.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joe.
Let's go through the ground rules very quickly. You will have each a minute to respond, 30 seconds to rebut. If one of you should, just by chance, make a disparaging comment or something you feel needs a response, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Congressman Curbelo, let me begin with you, sort of get this out of the way. You said months ago that you did not support Donald Trump. You still hold that position. You're not going to vote for him.
That's right, Michael. I took a principled stand a long time ago, not because it was politically expedient, but because it was what I believed in my heart. And I think, like many Americans, this campaign for president has been very disappointing. A lot of people are turned off. A lot of people in my generation, younger voters, some of them don't even want to vote. I'm telling people, go out and vote. Any expression on the ballot is worthwhile, but yes, that's my position. I'm not supporting either of these two candidates. I don't think either of them deserves a lapdog or a cheerleader. I think they both, whoever wins, needs to be held accountable, and that's my commitment to my community.
Will you write in the name of somebody?
That's something me and my wife will decide when we sit down to vote. We have our ballots at home already. We haven't opened them, but we will. And that's a decision we'll make, and it's a very personal decision. I respect all of the people out there. You have your Clinton supporters, you do have your Trump supporters. You have a lot of people who don't really like either of them, majorities if you look at most polls. Well, and everyone has to make the best decision for themselves and their families.
Thanks, I quite understand. All right, Mr. Garcia, you are a strong Hillary Clinton supporter. At a rally last week, she gave you a nice shout out. Is there anything about Secretary Clinton that gives you pause why you would not support her?
Look, Michael, first off, thank you for having us. Thank you, Carlos, for being here. Thank Talitha for setting us up. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great that we're discussing ideas, because I think that's what's important, and that's what this is about. And so when you listen to Secretary Clinton, she lays out, I think, an agenda that makes sense for our country. She stood in the square of American public policy for the last 3 decades, and I think it's a record of accomplishment. It is within the norm. The day after the election, if someone else wins of the other candidates here, I think would be a frightening day. That's why I think it's important to support her. I was an early supporter to her campaign because I believe she's got a record of accomplishment. She's got a record of being within the main of American politics, and I'm glad to call her a friend.
All right, let's begin sort of with some serious issues which we know from polling really matter to the people who live in this district. And the first one is the economy. Unemployment is considerably down, and poverty, in fact, fewer people are living in poverty, more people are insured, and yet there is a sense of unease in this country and in this district. What would you do, Mr. Garcia, to boost the economy in the 26th district?
Well, Michael, look, I think it's important to invest in the district. I think it's important to invest in Americans. And what we've seen by the Republican Congress, which Mr. Curbelo is a leader in, is a Congress that isn't willing to invest in our cities, not willing to invest in infrastructure. And those are the jobs that create a difference, right? That move our kids out of poverty or out of living in the basement and move us forward in our economy. And so I'm a great believer that the agenda that we lay out is one that makes a difference for the country. It's investing $280 $80 billion in infrastructure. It's what I did when I was in Congress, right? $200 million for Everglades restoration, millions of dollars for water purity projects in the Keys, bringing technical assistance, or voting to expand or to reduce interest rates on student loans and expand Pell Grants. Those are essential to move our country forward. That's why I think we need a Congress that does it.
All right. Congressman, hold on just a minute, but I have to say, last week we saw the budget figures for the fiscal year just ended, and Congress ended $587 billion in the red. 15 cents of every dollar that the government spends is borrowed. So you talk about infrastructure, you talk about student loans. Where's all this money going to come from?
Well, Michael, first of all, it comes with reforming the tax system, and you've got to have the courage to take it on. And you know, when folks like Mr. Crubello in the Republican leadership vote against taxing the very rich, vote against vote in the interest of the 1%, we obviously don't take in the revenue we know. But Michael, there's a huge difference between deficit spending and investing in the country. When you increase the value of the country, you diminish the deficit as a total percentage of the budget, and that we've seen in the last few years.
All right, let me ask the Congressman, jump in here and respond to what Mr. Garcia said.
Yeah, Michael, I don't have to tell you what I think. Instead, I'll tell you what I've done. I've worked with Republicans and Democrats in Congress on two major issues that are very important for our economy here in South Florida, because you're right. We have had a recovery, but there's still a great sense of economic insecurity out there. One of the big reasons is that half of the people who are graduating from colleges today with a four-year degree get jobs in places that don't require a college degree. So these poor kids that get into debt, that spend 4 years in college, then graduate, and guess what? They're working maybe at a restaurant, maybe which is fine, except for the fact that that's not why they went to college.
And it's not going to pay their student debt off very quickly either.
So here's what Republicans and Democrats in this Congress have done working together, and this is my committee, the Committee on Education and the Workforce. We passed a career and technical education bill that promotes different pathways to success. What's one of the big challenges in this country? That we trap a lot of our kids in a system that isn't necessarily for them. We tell kids, every kid in school, we say, you have to go get a four-year degree. Guess what? A lot of kids don't want to go get a four-year degree. Right. They want to take different pathways to success. They want to get into careers that require vocational training, and that's honorable work. And we're setting those kids up for success. So that's a powerful message we sent this Congress. One more, which is critical to our economy down here in South Florida: trade. A lot of great jobs at Miami International Airport, a lot of great jobs at the seaport, different ports throughout South Florida. We worked with the White House when the most radical elements of the Democratic Party wanted to deny President Obama the authority to go out and negotiate trade deals with our allies. We worked in Congress to make sure he got that authority, and that can lead to more wonderful, good quality paying jobs here in South Florida.
Do you support TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
I certainly support the concept, Michael. Look, anyone who lives in South Florida and is against free trade, and by the way, this is one of my frustrations with a presidential candidate. They're both against free trade now, which is absurd. We have so many good quality jobs, small businesses that depend on free trade in this area. We need more free trade. Do the deals need to be negotiated in a responsible way that protects American workers? Absolutely. But to be against trade in South Florida is to be against jobs in South Florida.
Mr. Garcia, what about TPP?
Well, Michael, I have to tell you, I'm not as it's presently designed, and I'm a believer in fair trade, not free trade. We have to hold people accountable, right? All these trade deals have very strong provisions, and we've got to hold them accountable, whether it's labor standards, whether it's environmental standards. When you're competing against nothing on the other side, it diminishes wages across the board. That's why I'm a big believer in moving forward on investment in the country, because, of course, that's here. Those are jobs here that we move forward. That's why education is so important in our budget. You know, when Carlos talks about being for the TPP, I understand the concept from a trade concept, but the truth is, if we're racing to the bottom, which is what has happened with many of these trade bills, all we do is hurt our country.
What about renegotiating NAFTA? We have heard a lot of that during the presidential race, and we have seen people in the Rust Belt states who, in fact, who lost jobs and never got anything back.
Rust Belt states, look at our own community, right? Tomato growers that have been wiped out, all our seasonal crop in the summer no longer is productive. That's why it's key. Michael, people fail to understand that this district is one of the great agricultural resources of the country. We produce more winter crop than any place in the country, the most valuable per acre land in the state of Florida in terms of agriculture. So absolutely we need to enforce the provisions of these trades to make a difference for our farmers, to make a difference for our workforce.
Let me just say, Michael, because this is a critical issue, and there's a lot of cowardice on the trade issue these days. Of course, the political winds are blowing in a certain direction, and as we can see, we have 2 presidential candidates, and of course, Bernie Sanders, who was out there before, trashing trade. So many South Florida families depend on these jobs, and I cannot, under any circumstance, turn my back on these policies because I know fundamentally that they have made our community more prosperous. I mean, South Florida is a major trade hub. People from all over the world come here, they bring their products, and we're more prosperous for it. Don't be fooled about trade. We need good trade deals, but we certainly can't turn our back on trade.
Michael, that's important, though, because we have to follow that up. The reality is we have to engage. We have to engage in those discussions. That's why we need someone who's going to work with the White House to make a difference. Who's going to work with Secretary Clinton and has a history of working within the administration. Michael, we know who the next president of the United States is going to be. Carlos is not supporting either one of them.
Well, we don't know. I think November 8th we will know. But hold your thought,
okay.
Joe, and we'll be back with more of the candidates for Congress in the 26th Congressional District in just a minute. Welcome back. We are in the midst of a debate between the candidates for the 26th Congressional District in South Florida. That is Westchester down to Key West. Joe Garcia, the Democrat, Carlos Curbelo, the Republican. Mr. Curbelo, I have heard you, and I think that the editorial boards of newspapers have described you as a moderate Republican. When I mentioned that the other day when I saw Mr. Garcia, he said he's no moderate. He has undergone a metamorphosis here because the district lines here have been redrawn. It is a district with slightly more Democrats than Republicans. And the real Carlos Curbelo, that you are really kind of a conservative in sheep's clothing.
Well,
what do you say?
Mr. Garcia has a long history of launching these types of attacks, of trying to confuse people. I've always been the same person, Michael. You've known me, the community has known me since I've been on the school board. On the school board, I was a consensus builder. I have my principles, I have my ideas, I fight for them. But I know at the end of the day, what most people in this country want is for Republicans and Democrats to come together, figure out the big issues, and get things done. That's why all of the bills I've passed in Congress, which, by the way, the Miami Herald documented, I have passed 7 bills as a freshman. That's very rare. Mr. Garcia passed 1 bill to name a post office while he was in Congress. I've passed bills on transportation, on the environment, on education, and I've done it by working with my Democratic colleagues because in divided government, especially, Michael, the only way anything gets done is by working together. I've always been the same person. Look, I didn't jump into this race. I didn't change my tune when the district changed. Mr. Garcia did. The district changed, he jumped in. The statute of limitations on the crimes his campaign committed expired, he jumped in. Annette Taddeo said this on your program. This is not something I'm making up. So if anyone has changed, it's
we'll
him.
get to those presently here. But is Mr. Curbelo a moderate, generally speaking?
Michael, thank you. Thank you because you restated what clearly is a fact. The only thing moderate about Carlos Curbelo is his rhetoric. The reality is that when you look at his voting record, here's someone who voted for a 48-hour waiting period for a woman who's been raped. Someone who's consistently voted against women's rights. Someone who voted against every single gun control bill that went up to the House. This is a guy who voted to close down the government to defund Planned Parenthood. So there's nothing really moderate about it except the district changed. And so when the district changed, suddenly we got a new Carlos Curbelo. He was moderate. He was talking about these issues. Let's be clear. The only difference between Donald Trump and Carlos Curbelo is that Donald Trump doesn't have a record. He has a lot of rhetoric. Carlos Curbelo has a rhetoric standing against women, standing against minorities. This is a majority Hispanic district. He voted 4 times to keep the president's DAPA order, which would have changed the lives of over 100,000 people in this community, legalized them, put them forward in the system, made them pay taxes, increased salaries. Didn't do it.
Michael, there's a litany of attacks and accusations there. He says that my rhetoric is moderate. His rhetoric is all lies. I mean, listen to him. You know I have 2 little girls, ages 6 and 4, yet he says I'm against women. Does anyone really believe that? No, because Mr. Garcia's lying. And you know what? I respect women, and you don't. You know what he said about Hillary Clinton. First of all, you said she was stupid, because you said she can't outthink you, because you think very highly of yourself. Secondly, you said that you wouldn't want to have sex with her and that she wouldn't be able to seduce you. I want everyone out there to think about, the women out there, but also the men who are watching. Think about your moms, think about your sisters, and imagine some guy in some room saying, yeah, you know, that woman, I wouldn't want to have sex with her. She can't seduce me. Yeah. She's not that smart, but I want to hire her anyway. You're disrespectful to women, and you should apologize today for that nasty rhetoric that you used.
Everything you just said is completely false, right? I said something stupid.
Well, hold on.
Nothing.
The record is clear.
No.
All right, gentlemen,
but
hold on just a minute.
It's clear.
Let's let the people at home hear this for themselves. This was recorded secretly.
Exactly.
In Key West a number of weeks ago at an event that Mr. Garcia held. So if we've got that tape ready, we're just going to run this little clip that was recorded secretly, and this is Mr. Garcia speaking.
And Hillary is under no illusions that you want to have sex with her, or that she's going to seduce you or outthink you.
All right, so maybe you can explain. What were you talking about?
I was talking to a guy. And Michael, they're stupid. There's no question about it. But
your remarks.
My remarks, but the words I chose.
Why did you say it?
Because I was speaking to a guy who was saying sexist things about her, right? That's why I stopped him when he started saying that. The reality is, what we were talking about is someone who's extremely competent, someone who's because that's what follows. And they were stupid. But you know what is offensive, Michael, when you talk about it, is someone who votes against the interests of women time and again, right? If you think about Carlos, who said we should have Mike Pence at the top of the ticker. This is a guy who voted legislation to make women have a funeral after they'd gone through an abortion. Voted every single time he's gotten a chance against abortion. Made women wait 24 hours after a rape. This is clear. And my position has been always to stand on the side of women, make a difference in this country.
I don't want to drag this out, Michael, real quick. He just said that he combats sexism with more sexism. What I would have told that man if he was being sexist is say, hey, I have 2 daughters, I'm married, what you're saying is offensive. And you know what? What you said is offensive. And as the dad of 2 girls, as the husband of a wife who works as a teacher now, I find it very offensive, Michael, and listen, I was disgusted by what you said.
Michael, I'm a father of a girl who just left the college, and the reality is that he is twisting the words because, of course, he can't talk about the issues. He can't address the fact that he won't address the issues about women. He is against choice. He is against choice, and he hasn't addressed it.
Well, he is sitting here and addressing it, and we're going to get you to explain your position on choice, both of you, when we come back. So take a minute, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We are in the midst of a lively debate between the candidates for the 26th Congressional District, Carlos Curbelo, the Republican, Joe Garcia, the Democrat. Let's sort of just get this on the record on abortion, on choice. Where do you stand?
Michael, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for that. I think that we have to value all human life. Now, at the same time, I understand the law. And I think that we need to respect the law. And what we should do in this country is find a consensus on this issue. And that's why I support legislation that says that after 20 weeks, which is the period of time after which a lot of doctors and experts believe a baby can feel pain, that we should have no more abortions after that period. That's what I voted for. And I'm proud of that record. And by the way, we have 2 little girls, and we're raising them this way, to value human life. Look, every abortion is a tragedy. It's tough for the woman, and obviously there's a life lost, no matter what your view is on that. So we should work together to limit, to reduce the number of abortions.
That's your position, and Mr. Garcia, tell us where you stand. I think I know, but
Michael,
tell us.
This is one of the most intimate decisions that a woman makes, and clearly the government should not get involved. The reality is that it is a tragedy when an abortion occurs, but the fact that you'd write legislation to stop a woman from having an abortion after she's been sexually abused or raped is just dangerous. It's out of the norm of thinking of our country and what makes sense. And when you think about women, you think about health care. This is someone who's voted 7 times to repeal or roll back without replacement Obamacare, which of course does the first thing it does is doesn't treat women, doesn't discriminate against women, right? It allows women to be treated the same. This is a healthcare provision that, of course, took away, if you had a pre-existing condition, you couldn't get insurance, now you do. In this community, there are hundreds of thousands of people who've benefited, and what we have to do is fix Obamacare, and that's what we're going to work to do, because it's important for women, and it's important to everybody in South Florida, one of the largest sign-up places in the country.
Thank you. And Congressman, what about Obamacare? You have voted against it. If you don't like it, what would you replace it with?
At the very least, the law does need to be reformed. We know that this law is failing a lot of people. And how do I know that, Michael? We get the calls in our office. People complaining, saying that, yes, that they did sign up, but then they went to the doctor and they couldn't afford the high deductible. This law provides a good talking point for politicians who want to show off about the number of people who are insured, but what they don't want to talk about, Michael, is the number of people who actually have access to quality health care. And a lot of these people who sign up for Obamacare, you know where they end up? In the emergency room, just where they used to go before. So this law has to change. This law has also wreaked a lot of havoc in our economy. And a lot of employers are struggling with it. Some employers have had to lay people off. Others have limited workers' hours. I mean, this was done in a way, this law was written by hospitals, by health insurance companies, and by Big Pharma, and it is designed to protect their interests. That's why it needs to at least be reformed.
Bottom line, what you're saying is, don't repeal it, simply improve it,
If we can improve it, let's improve it. If we can replace it with something better that actually puts patients and doctors in control and that isn't written for insurance companies, no, this is not a laughing matter.
Michael,
there's a lot of people struggling out there, then we should do it.
Mr. Crivello's been in Congress 2 years. The leadership, the Republican leadership has been talking about a replacement. Look, Michael, when Medicare went into place, and I understand, if Medicare would have had the problems that Obamacare did, which it did at the beginning, Carlos would have been in Congress because he believes Medicare is a Ponzi scheme and is on the record saying that. But what is clear is that this is a law that has changed the lives for the better of millions of people, 20 million people on it. But think again. Think about Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is on the verge of collapse. Because you have Obamacare today, that hospital is thriving, they're expanding their services, and they're reaching out. Now, what we have to do, just like we did with Medicare when it was put in place, just like the expansion of Medicare when George Bush was president, work with the system to make it better so it covers more people, it's more affordable, employers can buy in, and it makes a difference.
Let me touch on Medicare briefly because he likes to talk about this, but he has proposed no solutions. There's a fact today, Michael, both with Social Security and Medicare. If we do nothing, we will not keep our commitment to younger generations of Americans. It's a statistical fact. So I have proposed reforms to Social Security and Medicare. I have proposed means testing to make sure that those who need it most get the most benefits. He has not proposed a single change for Social Security and Medicare to make it stronger. And this is very dangerous. And by the way, Michael, this is Mr. Garcia's record. He got nothing done in Congress. Why? Because he can't work with others. At the height of the government shutdown, Mr. Garcia went to the House floor and called Republicans the Taliban. He doesn't know how to work with
people. Hold on, please. Before we run out of time, just briefly, I have to ask you, Mr. Crivello, you've introduced a bill that draws a distinction between Cubans who come here who are migrants for economic reasons and those who are political refugees. Why did you introduce that? Because there has been tremendous fraud in the system and benefits going to people who didn't deserve them?
That's exactly right, Michael. Look, this is a generous country, and no community knows that more than the Cuban community. So many of our families have come over the years, hardworking people, most of them people who couldn't return to Cuba for political reasons. They were being persecuted. Now, the problem today is that every Cuban that comes to the United States automatically, no questions asked, gets welfare benefits, up to $1,500 a month in direct cash payments, food stamps, and housing support. Some of these people come, they qualify for benefits, and then they return to live in Cuba while they continue receiving these benefits. Seniors who arrive from Cuba after the age of 65 get Social Security for life, despite never having paid into the system. Some of them get more than people who have been working in this country for 30 or 40 years. This has to be reformed. So our bill, and by the way, about 30 Democrats are supporting it, 128 total co-sponsors. What it does is it says if you are a refugee, then you will receive the benefits. But if you're coming here like anyone from anywhere else in the world, then you get a work permit and you can start contributing. But we cannot allow for our country's generosity to be abused by anyone, no matter where they're from.
Michael, it's again targeting, segmenting. Look, if there is abuse, let's write a law to stop the abuse. I'm the first to do it. But you and I both know why these funds were put there. They're put here because South Florida receives Haitian and Cuban refugees every year, whether they plan for it or not. And it was a huge drain on our economy.
Yeah,
so many years ago.
Yeah, but only the Cuban refugees get these generous benefits.
Haitian refugees get these benefits also.
The
when you're
Haitians cannot come to this country without permission. That's
I know you want to
true.
follow. I know you want to follow this Trump-like style, but let's be clear, right? What is important is that we have to reform the entire system and our relationship with Cuba, something that Mr. Curbelo doesn't engage in. He plays with the rhetoric around, plays and pits people against each other. I'm the first to say we've got to reform all these laws. We've got to reform wet foot, dry foot. We've got to reform the Cuban Adjustment Act. But we have to reform that relationship with Cuba, something he's voted against every single time. There is no community on earth that will benefit more from a serious relationship, both in human rights in Cuba, in people's lives, and moving that country forward than this community. But that requires, Michael, that requires a serious look at this. Not coming at it at the edges. I agree that there's abuse in the system. Write a law to stop the abuse. But what he does...
All right, before we get to Zika or anything else, we really are at the outer limits of our time. Before we go, I want you both to make a closing statement. And Mr. Garcia, go first, please.
Michael, look, I think from Trump to Mr. Curbelo, what people are tired of is just these attacks. Let's be clear. There's a record here. We have a record of standing up for this community and making a difference for the people of South Florida, whether it bring hundreds of millions to an Everglades restoration and investing in our economy and our workers, or standing up against the gun lobby, where Mr. Curbelo is called a lapdog for the NRA by the Brady campaign. What is clear is that our history is working with the people of South Florida, and with your support and God's favor, on November 8th, we'll go back to Washington so that South Florida has a voice in Washington.
Mr. Garcia, thanks. Mr. Curbelo.
Michael, this is a roll call. This is one of the 2 newspapers that gets published on Capitol Hill every day, and everyone reads it, Republicans and Democrats. These are the members who have been embroiled in scandal for corruption. You have members who have been indicted, convicted. Mr. Garcia's picture's up here, and it's for a reason, because he gave this community a terrible name in Washington, and for the past 2 years, I have been working on cleaning up our community's image. You know what people would ask me when I get there? They would say, do you come from that corrupt district? Oh. Because his campaign, and a Republican campaign, to be fair, perpetrated some terrible crimes in our community, and it's a shame. And every day in Washington, I have worked with Republicans and Democrats to try to help this community, whether it's transportation, education, the environment. I've been recognized by editorial boards, by independent groups for wanting to build consensus on these issues, and that is what I think every voter in this community ultimately wants. I know there's a lot of passion out there, strong feelings, but I really think that everyone in our country wants Republicans and Democrats to come together in a decent way, in an honest way, and solve the major problems that face our country. That's why I'm running for re-election.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. And I do feel compelled to point out that you were never indicted, never charged with any kind of campaign.
I was cleared, Michael, which is why you have a Benghazi-style attack.
Hold on. I think that we've sort of come to the end of this. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Michael, thank you.
We'll see what happens November 8th. All right, stay with us. We'll be back with the Roundtable. Oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about today with our Powerhouse Roundtable, so let's get right to the introductions. Marlon Hill, familiar face here, Miami attorney with the Hamilton Miller Berthasell firm, past president of the Caribbean Bar Association. Also glad to welcome back our friend Bernadette Pardo, veteran political reporter in South Florida, op-ed columnist for El Nuevo Herald, host of her own show on Radio Mambi. Charles Zeldin, a professor of history, political science at Nova Southeastern University, a go-to source for commentary on elections and politics. To all of you, good morning. Great to have you come in.
Good morning. Beautiful day.
Oh my goodness, it is gorgeous. Charles, let's begin with you. We all know that early voting begins tomorrow, and the mail-in voting has been going on for, what, 10 days or so? Yeah. And more than 2 million Floridians have already sent in ballots. And according to the Democratic Party, they're only behind by 6,000 votes. What does this mean?
Which is amazing. Traditionally, Republicans do very well with mail-in absentee ballots.
Right.
And then the Democrats do well with in-person early voting. For the Democrats to only be down by a few thousand votes at this stage is a miracle almost,
right.
because they're likely to be going much
Right.
further with the in-person voting.
Right, advantage to the Democrats, and in fact, Marlon, because of the federal judge in Tallahassee, there was an extra week of voter registration, and more than 70,000 people registered, and presumably, I would say the great majority of them are Democrats.
Absolutely. You know, Dr. Zeldin, it's not really a miracle. I think the Democratic Party and the Hillary campaign has been on the ground since the primary in February, hard at work, really trying to increase voter registration amounts and also to build confidence in vote by mail. That's my preferred choice to vote as well. And folks are starting to learn that, listen, vote by mail is not so problematic. Free postage, right? You can check to see when it's received.
Right.
But definitely, 70,000 people registered beyond the extension October 18th. That is remarkable. I think we might break 13.5 million voters here in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
the
would be
turnout's been
awesome.
high.
I would caution in the absentee ballot votes that that's the only area where there has been proven fraud in the past. And it's not from anyone impersonating a voter, it has to do with the collectors of these,
Right.
and where they collect them from people who are elderly, etc. So, so there has been a little bit,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't.
minor issues, though. Minor issues. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really not as Mr. Trump would say. The system
Oh,
is
no,
rigged, or there are
no.
issues there. The elections department here in Miami-Dade County, highly professional. And
I
even
think,
though
I think
folks may be
Marco
trying
Rubio
to,
explained it perfectly in the
Yeah.
debate. You have 67 counties in Florida, each one with their own Department of
Hard to
Elections.
rig that.
It's
Very
very hard to rig that. Plus,
Right.
you have Rick Scott, who is very vigilant. As you said, he didn't even want to grant a hurricane extension.
And the only time that this sort of thing has a potential impact is if the race is razor thin. If you're within a half point, you're within the margin of litigation, you're within the point at which the number of potential bad votes are greater than the margin of victory. But if somebody wins by 2, 3, 4 percentage points, it's irrelevant.
And even I think we should all, who lived through it, espouse 2000 as a lesson in civics, and a lesson in how after you lose an election with the popular vote by only 527 votes, you have a peaceful and dignified transition
Well, that
of
is-
power, which is
sure.
what I think is at issue right now.
Well, and that is a great American tradition, is the transfer of power. And Marlon, I have to say, we've all thought, I've certainly thought, there were last straw moments throughout this presidential race for Donald Trump. But at the third and final debate, when he said, I'll tell you on election day, I'm going to keep you in suspense on whether I will accept the results, I kind of thought to myself, oh my goodness.
It's sad.
This is just
it's
beyond
sad
the
and
pale.
it's sad and unfortunate for him, for someone who believes in the greatness in America, right? And part of the greatness of America is our democracy. And the fact is that we don't even have a centralized system that would rig something like this. So for him to kind of revert back from his central message of greatness in America is something that he will regret.
It's unfortunate that apparently 40% of people believe that it is
Well,
the case.
there's been a buildup because for the last 16 years, since 2000, the Republicans have been raising the specter of voter fraud to promote voter ID and other laws to clean up the vote. And it's led people to be in a position of thinking, well, clearly something's wrong, and Trump is just taking it past its logical extremes. And people are buying it because they've been prepped to buy it.
Based on the phone calls that I'm receiving or emails, folks are definitely ready to vote in this election. Even
Oh my
even
goodness,
U.S.
yes.
citizens voting overseas. So I would tell folks, listen, there are going to be long lines. You definitely want to take advantage of early voting that begins on Monday.
Well, I saw a figure, I think, in this morning's Miami Herald that on Election Day, 44% of voters in the state of Florida are going to vote in person. I mean, that is just a reversal of what traditionally has been a big voter turnout on Election Day. Bernie, we saw a figure this morning. ABC News reported that the national poll has it Clinton 50, Trump 38. I mean, a huge margin, 12 points. She seems to be pulling away everywhere but Florida. I mean, the last poll, good poll I saw, was that she was up in Florida by 3 to 4 points. Why can't she put it away here?
I don't know, maybe I don't honestly think it's the Cuban American vote because A, that's changed. B, it's not as important as it was, say, in 2000. But there's a change in that too. I would say, according to the latest poll by Fernanda Mandi, that the Cuban vote surprisingly in Miami-Dade County is split almost evenly with a few points of difference going for Trump. And I saw something that I think it really illustrates it this week. I was at the grocery store, a Latin one checking out, and then the next counter over was a young woman, Cuban, not born here, and recent arrival, but a citizen, and an older Cuban man who was like telling her how Trump was wonderful and he was really going to do it. And she very sweetly turned to him and she said, "Chico, you know what? I am poor. I have to be a Democrat."
Well, boy, there's a story I think that we should all remember. All right, hold your thoughts. We have more with the roundtable. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are in the midst of our roundtable discussion with Marlon Hill, Bernadette Pardo, Charles Zeldin. Charles, in the Senate debate this week, maybe expectations were low for Patrick Murphy. I thought he exceeded expectations. I thought he actually did, for the most part, a pretty good job, but he needed a clear-cut, emphatic win. I don't think he got it.
Probably not. The problem that Murphy has is that when they picked him, the Democrats were thinking in terms of an open vote, an open seat. And for an open seat election, he was a good candidate. Running against an incumbent with very high name recognition, all of a sudden it's Murphy who? And that's been his big problem. If he can get people to listen to him, he's got a lot to say that people might actually like.
Yeah.
I don't think that's his issue, though. I think his issue is going to be the top of the ticket. And is Rubio going to make a decision whether or not he's with Trump or not without Trump? And I think that says a lot about Senator Rubio. Murphy's likely to benefit more from the top of the ticket, but he has to win South Florida to do that.
Yeah.
And the New York Times did an interesting editorial endorsing, almost as an afterthought, they endorsed Patrick Murphy after savaging Marco Rubio on a number of areas where he might not get the vote because, people forget he's extremely conservative in many issues in which other people have evolved, including, gay marriage and abortion and all manner of things. Plus, he himself has said, he said at the beginning that he may not be there the full 6 years. He's denied that since the fact that they accuse him of being absent on many votes. So those are issues that the New York Times raised. But I think it's going to be down to whether you like him and trust him, or especially among Cuban Americans, or, I don't really think his support, however tacit, of Trump is going to make that much difference.
There's one way that might, and that is, does Trump drive people not to vote? If you're in the position where you are not going to vote for Hillary, you can't, absolutely, and now you feel you can't vote for Trump, what are you going to do? One of the easiest ways to deal with that dilemma is simply don't show up. And if that happens, if people choose not to show up because they can't choose, that's going to have major down
Then they will be
picket.
throwing away the most incredible part of their voting rights, which is the down ballot, which is what affects you from day to day, which is from bottom to top, the things that touch you.
The government closest to you is the one that really matters most in your life, and if you don't vote for mayor or a member of Congress or city council or something like that.
People think in terms of the top of the ticket.
Why is that? Because why can't they realize
the
that
numbers just show it.
And he will also benefit from the support from President Obama as well. So I think Murphy has a chance this week. The debate is going to be this week, Wednesday. Another chance to get his name out there, and we'll see how he does.
And we might have a debate in Spanish. I'm pretty sure we will.
On Univision.
I can't confirm it right now, but that's what I've been told.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we just saw a debate here that we conducted with Joe Garcia and Carlos Curbelo, and I don't want anybody to say unless you feel that there was a clear-cut winner. But Bernie, what did you think?
Well, I think it highlights its several differences. I think also that it highlights what I was telling you before we went on, that I think Carlos Curbelo may be the most moderate Republican in the nation today, and that there are other issues that, say, the Cuban community might cut, which is their very different approaches to the Cuban Adjustment Act. There is a great deal of, people don't like what's going on with the Cuban Adjustment Act. Many people feel it's been really exploited, Cubans included, but not the recent arrivals, because that's how they get here. And
Well, you know, two Belen Wolverines, they're going to have to scratch this one out. I think, and I think that Joe is going to, you know, Carlos has played his cards really to the, you know, center left. Right from the very beginning. So Joe's going to have to fight this one out to the last minute to kind of pull his base out.
I think top of the ticket again is going to go so far. Charles, before we run out of time, I do want to ask you, I mean, you teach in Broward County, I think you live up there, this question about ballots going out, mail-in ballots in Broward without amendment to the medical marijuana amendment. I don't know how widespread, nobody knows how widespread yet it is, but it's just astounding that Brenda Snipes' office couldn't get this right.
It is, but on the other hand, you keep in mind the number of ballots involved, the size of the district. I mean, we're talking over 1 million voters involved.
Right, and 92 different ballots, depending on where people live.
And so the reality is, I don't think there's anything particularly nefarious about this. I think this is just error.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen with the ones who already voted?
Well, there's going to be a hearing this week in court, sometime this week in Broward County Court.
On Tuesday, I believe.
And they'll sort it out. As you know, Dr. Zeldin said, I don't think this is some widespread conspiracy to remove that from the ballot. But I do think Dr. Snipes needs to check the auditing process within her office to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
There have been a few too many unforced errors in her office lately.
All right, that will be the final word. To all of you, thanks for coming in. Great to have a good roundtable with you. All right, still to come, my personal perspective on the political courage, or lack of it, of Marco Rubio.
Hey there, South Florida. Meteorologist Julie Durda. We woke up to temperatures in the 60s. We are expecting the 80s by kickoff for the big game. Sunny and breezy. If you're headed to the Dolphins game, enjoy. Otherwise, plan some outdoor activities today. Lots of sunshine expected. This great weather does stick around as we start the new work week. By tomorrow, we will see breezy conditions. That northeast breeze could bring us a slight chance of a shower in the forecast. But overall today, enjoy. Highs will be in the lower 80s from Key West all the way up towards Miami with lots of sunshine.
Julie, thanks very much. All right, before we leave you this morning, a personal perspective about political courage. You see it once in a great while. Remember the time 8 years ago when a woman at a town hall told John McCain Barack Obama was a Muslim, not a real American, and McCain promptly shut her down, saying that Senator Obama was a decent man, a good family man, and a good American. Oh, how we need that kind of moment now, a politician with spine, with real backbone. Unfortunately, Marco Rubio is not that man when it comes to Donald Trump. At the debate this week between Rubio and Democrat Patrick Murphy, Rubio called Trump all kinds of names, not my first choice, uninspirational, a bad candidate. And yet Rubio says he'll still vote for Donald Trump. Rubio also says he stands by everything he said about Trump during the GOP primaries, that he was erratic, a con man, and unfit to have the nuclear codes. Rubio also refuses to appear with Trump when he campaigns in Florida and doesn't endorse him in ads. Nevertheless, Rubio says he will vote for Trump because as a senator, he can provide a check and balance on Trump should he become president. Really? He's certainly not providing any kind of check and balance right now. Rubio's position is pure, naked politics. He doesn't want to alienate Trump voters who he needs to beat Murphy. But are there really any Trump voters out there who fail to see Rubio's support is just an act completely phony? Trump true believers still remember him as Little Marco, as Trump insultingly called him in the primary debates. I find this sad and pathetic. Marco Rubio is a smart, talented guy who earned our respect when he first sought elected office. Now, it seems he'll do or say anything to stay in office, even swallow his pride and vote for a presidential candidate he clearly detests, all to advance his own political ambitions. How low can you go? This is it. That is my personal perspective for this week. Hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and I will see you later from Naples, where I will be reporting from a Donald Trump rally. Remember, as always, stay informed, get involved, and hey, go Dolphins, beat those Bills. Have a great day.